What are the critical factors to consider when establishing rapport with a client in an animal behavior consultation? Answer: establishing rapport with a client is fundamental for a successful consultation. Critical factors to consider include active listening, demonstrating that you understand and care about the client's concerns, needs, and expectations. This requires not only hearing what the client says, but also observing nonverbal cues and responding empathetically. Clarification of goals. It's essential to align the consultation's goals with the client's expectations. Misalignment can cause frustration and hinder the success of the behavior modification plan. Asking open-ended questions helps in setting clear, achievable objectives. Trust and respect. The client needs to trust your expertise and feel respected. Ensuring a non-judgmental attitude toward the client's knowledge and situation fosters a cooperative environment. Professionalism. Adhering to professional conduct and maintaining a client-focused approach strengthens the consultant-client relationship. Always use language that is clear, professional, and easily understood by the client. Why is it crucial to conduct a thorough assessment of animal behavior before implementing any behavior modification plan? Answer: conducting a thorough assessment of animal behavior is essential for several reasons. Accurate identification of issues. Behavior assessments allow the consultant to identify the root causes of behavioral problems rather than simply addressing the symptoms. This ensures that the intervention targets the correct behavior. Individualized approach. Each animal is unique and the factors influencing its behavior can differ. A thorough assessment ensures that the behavior modification plan is tailored to the animal's specific needs, temperament, and environmental factors. Effective goal setting. Through a detailed assessment, the consultant can set realistic, measurable, and achievable goals for the behavior modification process. Prevention of harm. Inadequate assessments may lead to interventions that exacerbate the issue or cause unintended negative consequences. A comprehensive understanding of the animal's behavior helps in selecting the most appropriate and humane intervention strategies. What are the ethical implications of using aversive training methods, and why should they be avoided in animal behavior consultations? Answer: aversive training methods involve the use of unpleasant stimuli to discourage unwanted behaviors. These methods can have significant ethical implications, potential harm to the animal. Aversive techniques, such as punishment, can lead to fear, anxiety, and aggression in animals. This can harm the animal's welfare, reduce the animal's quality of life, and damage the human-animal relationship. Violation of IAAB Code of Ethics. The IAAB Code of Ethics advocates for humane methods of behavior modification that prioritize the well-being of the animal. Aversive methods often conflict with these ethical standards as they can cause distress and long-term emotional damage to the animal. Unintended side effects. Aversive methods can create unintended negative behaviors, e.g., fear of the trainer or environment, which may worsen the behavior problem or create new issues. Loss of trust. If clients observe or are informed that aversive methods are being used, it may erode their trust in the consultant's judgment and commitment to ethical practices. Mr. Lee is an experienced animal behavior consultant who is asked to provide advice to a client on a dog that exhibits frequent aggressive behavior towards other dogs. Upon initial observation, Mr. Lee finds that the dog's aggression is a result of fear, not dominance. The client requests a quick solution and suggests using a shock collar to address the behavior. What should Mr. Lee do in this situation? Answer: in this situation, Mr. Lee should adhere to the IAAB Code of Ethics, which mandates the use of humane, evidence-based methods that prioritize the animal's well-being. The shock collar, an aversive tool, would likely exacerbate the dog's fear and could lead to increased aggression or long-term emotional damage. Steps Mr. Lee should take: educate the client, explain that using aversive methods such as shock collars could harm the dog's trust and worsen the aggression. Focus on the importance of addressing the fear underlying the aggression. Propose positive alternatives. Recommend alternative, non-aversive techniques such as desensitization and counter-conditioning, which gradually expose the dog to other dogs in controlled environments without inducing fear. Set realistic expectations. Inform the client that behavior modification takes time and that a quick fix is unlikely. The goal should be to reduce the dog's fear-based aggression over time with consistent and positive training methods. Ensure clients' commitment. Emphasize the need for patience and consistency in training, as behavior change is a process that requires dedication and understanding. How can a behavior consultant effectively monitor progress and make necessary adjustments during the behavior modification process? Answer: effective progress monitoring and adjustments are essential to ensure the success and sustainability of behavior modification plans. This process involves establishing baseline behavior Before starting the modification plan, establish clear baseline measurements of the target behavior S, regular check-ins and data collection, maintain detailed records of the animal's behavior throughout the intervention process. This includes tracking frequency, intensity, and context of the behaviors, as well as any changes observed. Client feedback. Encourage clients to report their observations regularly. This helps assess the animal's progress in the home environment and provides valuable insights into how the behavior is changing, adjusting techniques as needed. If the behavior is not improving or is worsening, the plan may need to be adjusted. This could involve modifying the reinforcement strategy, changing the intensity of the interventions, or considering new techniques based on the animal's responses. Reevaluation of goals. As the animal progresses, the behavior consultant should reevaluate the original goals and set new ones if necessary, ensuring that the goals remain realistic and achievable. What are the key components of an effective behavior modification plan for a dog exhibiting separation anxiety? Answer: an effective behavior modification plan for a dog exhibiting separation anxiety should include the following key components: desensitization, gradually and systematically exposing the dog to being alone for progressively longer periods, ensuring the exposure is manageable for the dog. This process helps the dog learn to tolerate being alone without experiencing anxiety. Counter-conditioning, pairing the experience of being alone with positive experiences, such as treats or toys, to change the dog's emotional response to being left alone. Routine and predictability. Establishing a consistent routine for the dog, which includes predictable departure and arrival times, helps reduce uncertainty and anxiety. Training alternative behaviors. Teaching the dog alternative, acceptable behaviors to engage in when left alone, such as lying in a crate or on a bed, which can provide security. Consultation with a veterinarian. In some cases, medications may be required to help manage anxiety. A veterinarian should be consulted to rule out any medical issues and discuss the potential for pharmaceutical interventions. What ethical considerations should be taken into account when conducting a behavior consultation involving a high-risk dog, such as one that has previously shown aggression towards humans? Answer: when conducting a behavior consultation for a high-risk dog that has shown aggression toward humans, several key ethical considerations must be taken into account. Animal welfare. The welfare of the dog should be the primary concern. High-risk dogs require careful assessment to determine the underlying causes of aggression, e.g., fear, pain, territoriality, before proceeding with any intervention. The consultant must ensure that methods used will not escalate aggression or cause harm to the animal. Humane training methods. The use of aversive training methods, such as physical punishment or shock collars, is considered unethical and may exacerbate the aggression. The consultant should use positive reinforcement techniques and work within the IAABC Code of Ethics to ensure the training methods are safe and effective. Client safety. The consultant must ensure that the client is aware of the potential risks involved and provide guidance on safely managing the dog's behavior during training. This includes recommending appropriate precautions and setting realistic expectations regarding the time it will take to modify the dog's behavior. Transparency and documentation. Clear documentation of the consultation process, the dog's behavior, and the training plan is necessary to ensure transparency. What is the importance of using reinforcement in animal behavior modification, and what factors should be considered when selecting an appropriate reinforcer? Answer: reinforcement plays a pivotal role in animal behavior modification because it increases the likelihood of the desired behavior being repeated. The importance of using reinforcement includes positive reinforcement. By rewarding the animal for desirable behavior, you strengthen the likelihood that the behavior will be repeated in the future. It also creates a positive association with the behavior, improving the animal's emotional state. Variety of reinforcers. The type of reinforcer must be carefully selected to ensure it is motivating for the individual animal. Reinforcers can be food, toys, praise, or physical affection, depending on the animal's preferences. Timing and consistency. Reinforcement must occur immediately following the desired behavior to ensure that the animal makes the connection between the behavior and the reward. Consistency in reinforcement is critical for the animal to understand the relationship. Appropriateness of reinforcer. The reinforcer should be aligned with the behavior being modified. For example, if the goal is to reduce fear-based behavior, the reinforcer should help build confidence, such as a calm praise or favorite toy. Why is client education an integral part of the behavior modification process? Answer: client education is essential for the following reasons. Empowerment. Educating clients gives them the tools to reinforce the behavior modifications at home, ensuring consistency and better results. It also helps clients feel confident in their ability to manage their animal's behavior. Prevention of misuse of techniques. Without proper education, Clients may inadvertently use incorrect methods that can harm the animal or undermine the behavior modification process. Providing clear guidelines on how to reinforce positive behaviors helps prevent this. Collaboration. Education fosters collaboration between the consultant and the client. It ensures that both parties understand the goals and the strategies, which is essential for successful implementation. Long-term success. By equipping clients with knowledge on animal behavior and training techniques, behavior consultants ensure that the positive changes will be sustainable over time even after the consultation ends. Client education is a cornerstone of the behavior modification process and supports the ethical principle of transparency in the IAABC Code of Ethics. How can the behavior consultant ensure the sustainability of behavior change after the consultation process ends? Answer: to ensure sustainability, the behavior consultant should focus on the following: follow-up and adjustment. Scheduling follow-up consultations allows the consultant to track the progress of the behavior change and make necessary adjustments if the behavior begins to regress. Client responsibility. Ensuring that the client has the skills and confidence to continue the behavior modification plan after the consultation ends is critical. This includes educating the client on how to reinforce the desired behavior consistently. Generalization of behavior. The consultant should help the client ensure that the animal is able to generalize the learned behaviors across various contexts and environments. This ensures that the behavior change is not just situational but applies broadly. Ongoing reinforcement. Regular reinforcement of the desired behaviors even after the consultation ends is necessary for long-term success. By addressing these areas, the consultant ensures that behavior modifications are maintained and that the animal continues to thrive in its environment. Explain the concept of classical conditioning and provide an example illustrating extinction and spontaneous recovery in an animal setting. Answer: classical conditioning, first described by Ivan Pavlov, is a learning process in which an animal learns to associate a neutral stimulus with a stimulus that elicits a natural response. Over time, the neutral stimulus becomes a conditioned stimulus, producing a conditioned response. For example, imagine a dog that has been conditioned to salivate at the sound of a bell which was previously paired with food. Over time, if the bell is repeatedly rung without the presentation of food, the dog will stop salivating. This is known as extinction, where the conditioned response fades because the conditioned stimulus no longer predicts the unconditioned stimulus. However, if the bell is presented after a period of no exposure to the food, the dog may again salivate, a phenomenon known as spontaneous recovery, where the conditioned response reappears after a rest period even without new learning. In a behavioral setting, extinction bursts may also occur initially, where the behavior briefly intensifies before it fades away, before the extinction process fully takes place. Relevant law guideline. This concept falls under learning theory and animal behavior, which is crucial for understanding how behavior can be modified or extinguished in therapy or behavior modification practices. Describe the difference between positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. Provide examples of both and explain how they influence animal behavior. Answer: positive reinforcement involves adding a stimulus to increase the likelihood of a behavior being repeated. For example, if a dog sits on command and receives a treat, positive stimulus, the dog is more likely to sit again in the future. Negative reinforcement involves removing an aversive stimulus to increase the likelihood of a behavior. For instance, if a dog stops pulling on a leash when it receives a gentle correction, removal of discomfort, it is more likely to repeat the desired behavior to avoid the discomfort. Both types of reinforcement strengthen behaviors, but positive reinforcement adds something pleasant to reinforce behavior, while negative reinforcement removes something unpleasant. It's essential to note that negative reinforcement is often confused with punishment. The key difference is that reinforcement increases behavior while punishment decreases it. Relevant law guideline. Animal behavior consultants must understand how different types of reinforcement can be used in training. Ethical guidelines emphasize using positive reinforcement to ensure humane and effective methods. Mr. Daniels is working with a rescue dog that shows signs of sensitization to loud noises, such as fireworks or thunderstorms. How should Mr. Daniels approach this issue, and what is the role of habituation in his strategy? Answer: Mr. Daniels is dealing with a case of sensitization where the dog's response to loud noises becomes stronger with repeated exposure. To address this, Mr. Daniels should first ensure that the dog is not overwhelmed, as sensitization can worsen under stress. Habituation, the process where an animal gradually decreases its response to a repeated, non-threatening stimulus, could be a helpful strategy. Mr. Daniels should create a safe environment. starting with low-volume recordings of the noises such as fireworks or thunder and gradually increasing the volume over time, allowing the dog to become accustomed to the noise in a controlled manner. This process should be paired with positive reinforcement, such as providing treats when the dog remains calm in response to the noise to encourage calm behavior. The goal is to desensitize the dog to the stimulus, reducing its heightened response. Relevant law guideline. The ethical use of counter-conditioning and habituation techniques is essential for reducing anxiety in animals, as mandated by behavior modification principles, ensuring that the welfare of the animal is maintained throughout the process. Explain observational learning in animals. How does Bandura's theory of vicarious reinforcement apply to animal behavior? Provide an example of a species exhibiting this form of learning. Answer. Observational learning refers to animals learning by watching others without direct experience. According to Albert Bandura's theory of social learning, animals can learn through vicarious reinforcement, which occurs when they observe the consequences of another animal's behavior. If the observed animal is reinforced for its behavior, the observer is more likely to imitate it. For example, young chimpanzees often learn tool use by watching their mothers or other members of the group. If the observed chimpanzee successfully uses a stick to extract termites from a mound and receives food reinforcement, the young chimpanzee is more likely to imitate this behavior. Bandura's theory highlights the importance of social context in learning, where animals can modify their behavior based on the observed success or failure of others, a crucial component of animal behavior consultancy in social species. Relevant law guideline. In animal behavior consultancy, understanding observational learning is vital when working with species that rely heavily on social learning, such as primates, dolphins, or elephants. Latent learning refers to a form of learning that occurs without reinforcement but is only evident when a reward is introduced. How would you apply latent learning in a real-world animal training scenario? Answer. Latent learning occurs when an animal learns something without any immediate reinforcement, but the learning only becomes evident when a reward is offered. For instance, a dog may learn the layout of a new environment, such as a yard or park, simply by exploring it, even though it doesn't receive a reward during the exploration. Once a food reward is introduced, the dog can immediately navigate the environment more effectively, demonstrating the learning that had occurred previously. In a training scenario, latent learning can be leveraged by allowing an animal to freely explore an environment before attempting to teach it specific behaviors. By allowing the animal to learn the spatial and environmental cues on its own, trainers can later add rewards to guide more specific behaviors, such as retrieving a toy or navigating an obstacle course. Relevant law guideline. Latent learning is a critical concept in cognitive learning theories and is referenced in guidelines that emphasize the importance of allowing animals the opportunity to explore and learn in a low-pressure environment before formal training begins. What are the main ethical considerations when applying positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement in animal behavior modification, especially in regards to animal welfare? Answer. Ethical considerations in behavior modification focus on ensuring that the methods used are humane and aligned with the animal's well-being. When applying positive reinforcement, the emphasis is on rewarding desirable behaviors to increase their frequency. This method is generally considered the most humane as it encourages voluntary participation without causing distress. On the other hand, negative reinforcement involves removing an aversive stimulus to encourage a behavior. While it can be effective, ethical concerns arise if the negative stimulus is too harsh or causes the animal undue stress or fear. It's essential that negative reinforcement methods are used cautiously and paired with positive reinforcement to avoid creating negative emotional associations. Ethical guidelines, such as the 5 freedoms in animal welfare, freedom from fear and distress, for example, stress that any behavior modification should not cause harm or unnecessary stress to the animal. Relevant law guideline. Ethical codes, including those set by the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants, recommend prioritizing positive reinforcement as the preferred method of training due to its low risk of harm and its effectiveness in promoting long-term behavioral change. What role does self-awareness play in animal cognition, and how is the mirror test used to assess this in non-human animals? Answer. Self-awareness is the ability of an animal to recognize itself as distinct from others. One common method for assessing self-awareness is the mirror test developed by Gordon Gallup Jr. This test involves placing a mark on an animal's body in a location it cannot see without a mirror. If the animal uses the mirror to investigate and remove the mark, it demonstrates self-recognition, a sign of self-awareness. Species such as chimpanzees, dolphins, and elephants have passed the mirror test, indicating that they possess a level of self-awareness. This ability is important for understanding complex social behaviors and problem solving, as it allows animals to reflect on their actions and their consequences. Relevant law guideline. The mirror test is an important benchmark in animal cognition studies and plays a significant role in ethical discussions on animal consciousness and rights. Aspects of animal welfare and cognitive testing are considered under guidelines for humane scientific study. How can social bonds impact cooperative behavior in animal species? Provide an example of a species that exhibits strong social bonds to enhance survival. Answer. Social bonds in animals are critical for survival, especially in species that rely on cooperation for feeding, protection, or rearing offspring. In species like wolves, the pack structure is essential for hunting and survival. Strong social bonds within the pack ensure effective coordination and strategy, where each member contributes to the success of the hunt and the protection of the group. In these species, cooperation is not only driven by genetic relatedness, kin selection, but also by the strength of social bonds that foster trust, communication, and coordinated action. This can be seen in many social animals, such as elephants or dolphins, which form close-knit groups that work together to ensure the welfare of all members. Relevant law guideline. Ethical guidelines on animal behavior emphasize the importance of understanding the role of social bonds in species-specific behavior, which is essential when developing enrichment and training programs for social animals. How do dominance hierarchies influence behavior within a group, and what ethical considerations should be taken into account when managing such hierarchies in a captive environment? Answer. Dominance hierarchies refer to the social ranking that determines access to resources, mates, and other essential needs. In many species, such as lions or chickens, higher-ranking individuals receive preferential treatment, while lower-ranking individuals may have to compete or tolerate subordination. In a captive environment, such as a zoo or sanctuary, these hierarchies should be managed carefully to prevent stress, aggression, or injury. Ethical considerations include providing sufficient space, avoiding forced aggression, and ensuring that all animals have access to resources. Managers should consider the natural structure of the hierarchy but avoid creating conditions where the dominant system leads to harm or distress. Relevant law guideline. Ethical standards in animal behavior consultancy stress the importance of respecting natural social structures while ensuring that the animal's needs for space, resources, and social interactions are met in captivity. Explain the role of cognitive maps in animal navigation. How do animals like rats use cognitive maps to find their way through mazes? Answer. Cognitive maps are mental representations of spatial layouts that allow animals to navigate complex environments. Rats, for example, have been shown to develop cognitive maps of mazes by creating mental representations of the maze structure as they explore it. These maps allow the rat to use cues from the environment, such as landmarks or walls, to navigate the maze even after changes are made to the layout. The rat's ability to adapt to new routes or use memory to define a shortcut suggests that cognitive maps play a crucial role in problem solving and survival. Relevant law guideline. Cognitive maps are central to studies of animal cognition, and understanding this ability helps animal behavior consultants design environments that encourage natural behavior and learning processes. What are the key principles of positive reinforcement, and how can they be applied to effectively modify behavior in an animal? Answer. Positive reinforcement involves increasing the likelihood of a behavior by following it with a rewarding stimulus. The key principles include timing. Reinforcement must be delivered immediately after the desired behavior to create a clear association. Consistency. Reinforce the behavior every time it occurs to strengthen the connection between the behavior and the reward. Reinforcer selection. The reward must be motivating for the individual animal. This could include food, praise, or play depending on the species and its preferences. Gradual reduction of reinforcement. Over time, the reinforcement schedule can be adjusted from continuous reinforcement to intermittent reinforcement to maintain the behavior. Positive reinforcement is effective in modifying behavior as it creates a positive association with the desired action, increasing the chances of that behavior occurring. For example, in canine training, rewarding a dog with treats immediately after sitting on command reinforces the sit behavior, making it more likely that the dog will sit again when asked. How does the concept of generalization differ from discrimination in animal behavior training, and why are both crucial in teaching an animal new behaviors? Answer. Generalization refers to the process by which an animal learns to apply a behavior in various contexts or environments beyond where it was initially trained. For example, a dog might learn to sit on command in a training room and later generalize this behavior to other locations like a park or a busy street. Discrimination, on the other hand, occurs when the animal learns to distinguish between different stimuli and respond appropriately to each. For example, a dog may learn to sit only when the trainer uses the specific command word sit, but not to respond to similar sounding words like hit. Both concepts are important because generalization ensures that behaviors are reliable across different situations, and discrimination ensures that the animal responds appropriately to different cues. Balancing both principles is essential for training animals to behave appropriately in a wide range of scenarios while avoiding confusion caused by overly broad generalization or overly restrictive discrimination. What are some common issues that trainers face with clicker training, and how can they be addressed? Answer: some common issues in clicker training include timing errors. If the click is delayed, the animal may not associate the click with the desired behavior. To address this, trainers should practice precise timing and ensure the click happens at the exact moment the behavior occurs. Overuse of the clicker, over-relying on the clicker without gradually fading it, can lead to an animal that expects a click for every action. This can be addressed by gradually transitioning to intermittent reinforcement and using the clicker less frequently. Misunderstanding of behavior. Sometimes the animal may not understand the connection between the click and the behavior. This can be mitigated by ensuring the behavior is clear and simple and that the animal has learned to associate the click with a specific reward. Clicker training can be highly effective when used correctly, as it provides immediate feedback to the animal, making it clear what is being reinforced. Mr. Johnson is training his dog, Max, to stop barking excessively when the doorbell rings. He uses positive reinforcement by rewarding Max with treats every time he stops barking after the doorbell rings. However, Max continues to bark despite the treats. What could Mr. Johnson do to improve the training process? Answer: Mr. Johnson could adjust his training strategy by increasing the value of the reward. If the treats are not motivating enough for Max, Mr. Johnson could try using higher value rewards like special treats or toys that Max loves. Improving timing. Mr. Johnson should ensure that the reward is given immediately when Max stops barking, so Max makes the connection between the behavior, stopping barking, and the reward. Using a more structured training approach, Mr. Johnson should ensure that the behavior is trained in small, manageable steps. For example, he could start by rewarding Max for quieting down for a few seconds, gradually increasing the duration before rewarding. This approach helps to break down the desired behavior into smaller, achievable steps. Desensitization and counter-conditioning. Mr. Johnson could also try desensitizing Max to the doorbell by repeatedly ringing the doorbell at low volumes or from a distance, rewarding Max for calm behavior in response to the sound. What are the potential risks of using aversive training methods in canine behavior modification, and how can these risks be mitigated? Answer: aversive training methods involve using unpleasant stimuli such as shock collars or leash corrections to discourage unwanted behaviors. While these methods can produce quick results, they carry several risks: fear and anxiety. Aversive stimuli can create fear and anxiety in the dog, leading to behavioral issues like aggression, fear biting, or avoidance. Generalization of fear. Aversive training may cause the dog to associate negative experiences with situations or objects unrelated to the behavior being corrected. For example, a dog trained with an aversive method might become fearful of other dogs or people, not just the situation being addressed. Damage to the bond. Harsh methods can damage the relationship between the trainer and the animal, reducing the effectiveness of training in the long term. These risks can be mitigated by using positive reinforcement methods, ensuring that corrections are mild and used only when absolutely necessary, and focusing on building trust and clear communication with the animal. How can shaping be used to train an animal for a complex behavior, and what are the key steps involved in this process? Answer: shaping involves gradually reinforcing successive approximations of a complex behavior. This method is particularly useful when teaching animals behaviors that they have never performed before or behaviors that require a series of actions. The key steps in shaping are: define the final behavior, determine exactly what the completed behavior will look like, break down the behavior into smaller steps, identify simpler behaviors that gradually lead to the final behavior, reinforce successive approximations. Start by reinforcing the animal for any behavior that resembles the final behavior and progressively reinforce behaviors that are closer to the desired outcome. Gradually reduce reinforcement. As the animal learns the behavior, reinforce it less frequently until it is reliably performed. For example, to train a dog to roll over, the trainer might start by reinforcing the dog for lying down, then for rolling onto its side, and finally for completing the full rollover. How does territoriality manifest in canine behavior, and what impact does it have on behavior training? Answer: territoriality in dogs refers to the instinctual behavior of defending a particular space or area from intruders, which may include other animals or people. This behavior can manifest in the form of aggression. The dog may exhibit growling, barking, or lunging when someone enters its territory. Marking: dogs often mark their territory with urine or scent glands. Resource guarding: dogs may guard food, toys, or even people, perceiving them as part of their territory. In behavior training, territoriality can present challenges, especially if the dog becomes aggressive when new people or animals enter its territory. This can be addressed by desensitization, gradually exposing the dog to new people or animals in a controlled manner, rewarding calm behavior and reinforcing positive interactions. Redirection, using commands or distractions to shift the dog's focus away from guarding behavior. Socialization, exposing the dog to different environments, people, and animals to reduce territorial aggression. What is the significance of a behavior plan, and how should a consultant approach creating one for a client with an aggressive dog? Answer: a behavior plan is a structured approach that outlines the steps necessary to address a specific behavioral issue. For a client with an aggressive dog, the behavior plan should include assessment of the behavior, thorough observation and analysis of the aggression triggers, e.g., certain environments, other animals, or people, goals of the training, clearly defined, measurable objectives for the behavior modification, e.g., reducing growling in specific situations, training techniques, a combination of positive reinforcement, desensitization, and counter-conditioning techniques tailored to the dog's needs. Owner involvement, detailed instructions for the owner on how to implement the training techniques consistently at home. Progress evaluation, regular assessment of the dog's progress and adjustments to the plan as needed. The behavior plan should be flexible and adaptable, allowing for changes based on the dog's response to training. Additionally, consultants should ensure that the owner is committed to the process and is capable of following through with the plan. How do prey drive and predatory behavior in canines affect training techniques, and how can a consultant modify training to accommodate these instincts? Answer: prey drive and predatory behavior in dogs can influence training, as dogs with high prey drive are often motivated by movement and chase, which can lead to unwanted behaviors such as chasing cars, other animals, or even children. These instincts can be harnessed in training by redirecting the prey drive toward more appropriate outlets. Training modifications include redirecting energy, offering toys or games that simulate hunting behavior, such as tug-of-war or fetch, to provide an acceptable outlet for the dog's energy. Focus on impulse control, training exercises that encourage the dog to focus on commands like leave it or stay rather than following prey-driven impulses. Use of barriers. In cases of highly developed prey drive, consultants may recommend training in controlled environments, such as using leashes or fences, to reduce the likelihood of the dog acting on its predatory instincts. By understanding prey drive, trainers can work to modify these instincts in ways that are safe for both the dog and those around it. What are the ethical considerations when working with exotic animals, and how should a consultant approach training these species differently from domesticated animals? Answer: ethical considerations when working with exotic animals include welfare concerns. Exotic animals often have different physical and psychological needs than domesticated species, and it's essential to ensure that their welfare is not compromised during training. Natural behavior. Trainers should ensure that the animal's natural behaviors are respected and that training methods do not cause undue stress or harm. Risk of injury. Exotic animals can be more dangerous to handle due to their size, strength, or defensive behaviors, so consultants should prioritize safety and consider the animal's individual temperament when designing training plans. Training exotic animals may require specialized knowledge of the species, behavior, natural environment, and specific needs. For example, reptile training often focuses on environmental enrichment and conditioning, while birds of prey may require reinforcement of behaviors that mimic hunting instincts. In both cases, trainers should use positive reinforcement techniques, minimize stress, and ensure that training methods are adapted to the specific species characteristics.